Hi, I'm Craig de Kock from NETSTOCK. We're one of the new ISV partners that have just joined the team. We're a global business that have been around for the last couple of years, from about 2010. And we are currently operating in over 10 countries with over 400 customers using the product. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about this product now today. It's an inventory optimization technology. And I want to just give you a bit of a view on what this product is, how it works, and how to get some benefit for your customers by using this technology. As a bit of background, even before I get into the slideshow, one of the things I wanted to mention is that we've been in this game since the late 80s in various different companies around the world. And we realized that having built quite some complex technology to solve these issues in the supply chain arena, that it's a really challenging space. And what we found is that these complex solutions don't always solve the customer's problems in the longer term. What they end up doing is they add the complexity and the layers that the customer needs or think they need at that point in time, but they get lost in the detail. It becomes really complex, and you go back 6 months later and you find that half the customers that really loved the solution at the time aren't using it anymore. And the key real issue is they got lost in complexity. So one of the things that we really are married to in terms of how we promote and use NETSTOCK and get it deployed is to keep it simple. It really is the secret to the success here. Solve the key problems that need to be solved and keep the solution simple. And hopefully that'll come through in the message. I mean, ideally what we're trying to get to is that a new user should be able to come on board and use the software without almost getting trained. It should be that easy to use. And the only way to get that right is to keep it simple. So you'll hear that message a few more times as we go through the demo. So let's get into a couple of bits of background. So for starters, what I'd like to do is just phrase NETSTOCK in itself. What is it? It's really an affordable cloud-based solution that integrates with the ERP systems, helps you optimize your inventory, and helps customers reduce working capital, improve service to their customers, and really save time. And we're finding the saving time is becoming quite a key issue in most businesses today. And the key thing, as I mentioned earlier, is to remove this whole thing of complexity. Don't make it too difficult, keep it simple. And a lot of the customers come with complex requirements because they don't know how else to ask for it. So as a bit of background, a little bit more extending on what I mentioned earlier, really, we've been around since 2010, 400 plus firms that are using the product now. We spread across 10 countries. We have over 3,000 users logging in on a day-to-day basis, and we're managing over $1.5 billion in inventory across the globe. We're adding customers at the rate of about 30 customers a month at this stage, so it's really going through some rapid growth at the moment, and it gives you an idea of the sort of adoption and how excited the customers are becoming about this product. In terms of pricing, you'll see that this is one of the reasons why customers get excited, because we're charging anything from $199 upwards based on the value of stock under management, and the implementation fee is only $1,499. So really not a big ask in terms of finances. It's a 30-day notice, unlimited users, unlimited products. And really, if a customer wants to try this, have a look and see if it solves their problem, they can do it with a solution like this. Very few other products out there can provide the affordability or the return on investment that we're talking about here. There's a full picture of the full pricing plan. You can see from $1 to $99 upwards, and it really scales based on the value of stock under management, because that determines what value customers will get out of the product. So those are the numbers. To position this relative to other products that you might be offering or might have available, we're focused here on the inventory replenishment side of the equation. We're not talking about barcoding. We're not talking about the warehousing sort of activity, the stock control things. Those are things that your ERP and warehouse management systems need to do. We're focused here on things like the forecasting, the ordering, and the expediting type activities. The things that your customers today probably are doing in Excel spreadsheets. They're probably working through complex exports and Excel spreadsheets and CSV reports, or whatever else, to get to an answer and to get to some sort of technology to try and do this calculation. And that's what we're looking to replace. Without further ado, let's have a look at a little bit of software. When I go through the software now, you'll notice what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about a couple of different screens, and I could spend probably a good 6 hours or so working through the software. But what we want to touch on here is not go into all the detail of the software, but really have a look at a couple of the key points around what makes this usable, what makes this the product that is so easy to adopt inside your customer base. But at the same time, I want to give you a bit of a feel of what the product does and what the boundaries are, so that you know where this works and where this doesn't work for your potential customers. So the landing page. We've logged into a demo system over here, and this demo system, I'm looking at a central store location at this point in time, and I'm looking at a dashboard. And the purpose of the dashboard is to give the customer on a day-to-day basis a key indication of what's going on in their business. This is about what went wrong. So we want to try and figure out where things are not working according to plan, where orders and items are outside of normal parameters, and what do we need to do to try and correct that situation. So if we have a look across the top there, you're getting a quick view of the stock holding. In this case, we've got 25 million Australian dollars in this case, in terms of stock that we've got invested, against a model stock or an ideal position of 11.9. We're currently running, and the reason we're not getting to that model is because we've got a bunch of items tied up in excess. At this point in time, 283 items in excess, and the amount of stock tied up in terms of value terms, 8.8 million. But to make matters worse, we've got another 75 items shown here on the right under surplus orders that are going to be giving us future excess when that stock arrives. And the amount of additional excess that's not reflected in your stock or excess at the moment is another 2 million that's coming at you. So what you've got in terms of just a couple of key graphics is a very quick story about what's happening with our stock. To make it easy for customers to work with us, what we've done is we provided the top 5 lists for these things. And it becomes really easy to navigate and identify where I need to spend my time. Remember, one of the points I raised earlier is that customers need to know where to invest their time. Well, look at this. Out of the 8.8 million excess, 4.1 of them is tied up in just 5 products. So if I could manage just those 5 excess items and work on them a little bit harder, I could get through almost 50% of the problem just by getting those 5 solved. And that trend holds true for all the rest of the graphics that we're looking at. So if you have a look at this, we've got our story around the stock at the top over here. We've got another story to tell at the bottom over here about the fill rate. And the key thing around stock is always there's a stock balance between the amount of stock that you're carrying and the fill rate in terms of what you can provide to customers. That's always the balancing act that we're busy with or the customers are busy with. And for these guys, they're sitting on 86% availability or full against a target of 95. So why aren't they achieving the target? Well, there's 291 items today that are out of stock. And if we don't do something different about it, well, they're going to lose 2.1 million in terms of sales. To make matters worse, we've got another 27 that aren't out of stock today, but will be if we don't do anything different by the time the lead time comes around or the next delivery. And we could lose a further 576,000 in sales on those products as well. Once again, you've got your top 5 lists. So just a couple of key things on these screens that we're looking at. The simplicity is key. You've got key measures, graphics, all the rest of it. It's easy to use. The top 5 lists are there, easy to access. One of the things we've done in terms of the design is to get into the detail, which is what your customers need to do when they start understanding and unpacking the whole issue, is they need to be able to find the products and the problems very quickly. So, for example, if I want to know what are these items in the stock out list, really easy to do. Click on the item or the value that we're looking at the top there, the 2.1, and it gives me a list of excess items, potential stock outs in descending order of the value of the impact. I've got the ability here to filter this. So if there's certain sections of the business, if there's certain buyers working with certain products, we can apply that as a filter. And I've got the option at the bottom to export this into a CSV report and go and play in Excel, because we seem to really enjoy playing around in Excel tools. So really easy to get to it, and really you can see this almost as peeling the layers of an onion. So you've got a problem. What is the problem about? There it is on the dashboard. That's the size of the problem. Now, what are the top 5? Work on those. Maybe those are the ones we want to focus on. You want to go deeper, drill into the list. We've got the full list. From here, we can filter, slice and dice, and go into Excel and really get into the heart of the problem and get to the issue really quickly. And today, your customers are having to do that same exercise by exporting data from various sources, pulling it through a lengthy Excel process, and potentially messing up their Excel files to just try and figure out what the problem is. And they haven't even tried to solve the problem. They're just trying to find it at this point. So one of the key things in here. So that's the dashboard. The other part of the whole equation that we need to understand and we need to be able to do really effectively is place the right order at the right time. So what I'm doing now is I'm navigating across quickly to a new order. And I want to place a new order on a store. Let's say I'm looking at one of these small branches, and these small branches over here get their stock from another warehouse. So we've configured in this setup of this demo system a central warehouse link. So a store gets its stock from another store, and the central warehouse is responsible not only to provide for customers, but for other stores as well in terms of the stock they need to provide for. There are currently 54 items that need to be ordered. That's the quantity and the value, and let's go ahead and create the order. When I create the order now, a couple of key things that we've done here. We've built the ordering screen in a way that makes it quite intuitive and easy to use. One of the key things I love about this is this ability to look at the sales and the forecast in a graphical view. So if you have a look at this product that we've got on the screen at the moment, the blue area represents the sales history, and the orange or brown sort of color represents the future demand. And what does that do? It really allows us quickly to identify items that I should be double checking. You know, if you look at a sales and forecast and it looks reasonable just from a graphical point of view, well, the order is likely to be okay. But where there's a complete discrepancy between the stock the forecast and the historical sales, well, these are the ones we're going to want to look at again before we make a final call. Here's a key item on the screen at the moment. You can see a forecast into the future, but historical sales have dried up. So before I place this order, I'm going to want to look at this and understand why is that order even being recommended. Maybe I need to adjust the forecast before I allow the order to be placed. On other items, I might find the opposite happening where the forecast is completely dried up and there is still sales. So we want to be able to identify these sort of items really easily. The second key thing we're doing here is we're giving running totals. So if you have a look at the bottom of the screen, you've got the totals over here in terms of the number of products, the number of units, the value. If the weights and volumes have been set in your ERP system, well, that can flow through as well. So you're sitting here with some running totals, and if I change a number, I immediately see the result of that. If I change that from 5 and I type in 3,000 because I'm really optimistic about what's going to happen into the future, I see the impact of that change. And I can see that the order value is just increased by $200,000, and I can see an increase in weight and volumetrics in terms of that. So we can now start thinking about what is the container fill look like, what are the size trucks that we need to be using, what are the other logistical implications of this? Should I split the order? These are the sort of things we can start looking at. Maybe I haven't ordered enough. Well, you've got the add button over here that allows you to add to this existing order against the supplier or to the order against a store additional products. And we can add any product that's linked to that store, or we could go ahead and just simply add from a list of items that into the future might require an order still. So what we're doing with the top-up list is looking at the products that aren't due for ordering today but could be in a week or two's time in order to help economize on the size of the container or the size of the truck that we're using. And by doing that, you're going to get more effective logistics costs out of the equation. So from here, we can add to the list over here. We can say we're going to add in these 3 products. And as we add these items to the list, it continues to add to the bottom of the screen over here. We'll see if I scroll down a little bit, it's giving us a running total at the bottom. But maybe we want to have a look at it from a different point of view and say, help me solve this problem. I want to achieve a certain volume. And the volume at the moment you can see is sitting at a total of 16,100, whatever the unit of measure is. And let's say I want to get to 17,000. And that's an economical number for me to work with for whatever reason. I hit the solve button, it goes away, and it picks from everything in the list to as far as it can to get me as close to the number of 17,000 as it can. And it got me up to 16,300. So it did add a little bit to the order here. All right, so just a couple of quick views from here. I'm going to go ahead and hit add and add that to my ordering report. It's going to add the totals onto the other screen over here at the bottom, and we can see the impact of all the decisions that we're making. Once I've gone through the ordering screen now, I now hit the download button, and what that'll do is export a file out. Now, the file that we receive in terms of an output file can be configured to be a CSV file, so it can work in Excel, or it can be an output file compatible with your ERP, and we're currently working on some interfaces to the Acumatica system, so we can import that straight back into Acumatica. So that's something to look forward to that's coming into the future. And that'll save obviously a lot of time, people not having to recapture orders, not having to reload the data, and making mistakes in that process as well. So really, it's just drilled into the dashboard about what we need to order over there. We looked at the orders now, placing the ideal order at the right time. The next piece of the equation that I wanted to explore a little bit is just an individual item. And the individual item, the inventory inquiry screen that we've got over here, gives us a lot of information about an individual product. And this is this place we go to when we're trying to solve a problem. It could be something's gone wrong and we need to figure out what's going on. Once again, I'm not going to go into all the detail around the screen, but you can see that little familiar graphic that we had on the other screen over there. In this case here, it's also showing me what the requirement is for other warehouses. So I want to show you a little bit of the background in terms of other demand streams that can come into this. And in this equation here, you can see that the demand for the product is not only made up by sales and forecast of those sales in the store, but also by demand from other warehouses. And if we have a look down at the bottom here, you can see a little indicator saying, hey, I've got demand coming from a different source over here, and here's the central warehouse demand stream that's been rolled up. So the calculations taken place on each of the different branches that require stock from the central store. It's worked out what is needed per month going forward down to a day level. So if I have a look at the detail, it even tells me down to which day I'm likely to place that order. And it's rolled through that requirement as an additional requirement to the central store. So the central store provides not only for their own customers, but for the branches they need to supply as well. And using all that information, those are calculating the ideal min and max levels that then are used for alerts and for triggers for this individual product. So you can see reorder points being calculated, order up to levels, and a whole equation over here being used and being displayed to the user that says, this is what you're needing to order, even taking into account something like a minimum order quantity, allowing us to make that optimal ordering decision and also have the alerts trigger based on all demand streams that's needed for this individual product. Going a bit deeper and just exploring what else is around for this product, you'll notice that for this product as well, there's a bill of material indicator over here. So what happens with this product over here, this is a finished good product that is assembled or manufactured at the central store. And in order to assemble or manufacture it, it needs to blow through its future requirements through to the raw material level. So we've got a calculation over here using a projection screen saying what needs to be ordered into the future, month by month, day by day into the future, and using that information that's blown through an MRP type calculation to the lower level raw material items. And at the raw material items now, you will get a view of what's needed for this product going forward. So thinking about this just from an end-to-end sort of situation, when I'm dealing with a raw material item, this example that I'm opening up here has got a whole bunch of finished good items that it links to, but those finished goods link through to the finished good in the central store, but also link one step further through to the store. So the sales and the forecast from a store is linking through to the central store, is linking through a bill of material to the raw material requirement, being a complete dependent demand stream that's being calculated for the user. Now all of that sounds quite complex, but you'll see in terms of the interface and how it's displayed, very visual, very interactive for the users, and very easy to use. And that's really the key to success here, is making something as complex as MRP, central warehouse demand streams, linked demand streams, safety stock, all these calculations become a lot simpler for the user. It's also what allows users to understand what they're working with and stick with the solution and not try and find different solutions every week because they don't understand what they're doing. So that's part of the equation over here, and really from using the system over here and linking to bill of material and central warehouse, I hope I've given you a bit of a flavor for that. I also wanted to just quickly touch on some of the global views quickly, and you'll see from a forecasting point of view, we've got a top-down forecast principle built into the system as well. We're not only calculating the forecast for every single product in every single location using a tournament methodology, which goes and finds the best fit forecasting for every item using a range of formulas. But it also allows you now to look at it from a global point of view by grouping and see what the impact is. So if something's changed in the business, they can have a look at it from a top-down point of view, apply a filter to the group of items that they're looking at, and use this adjust option over here to apply a percentage change at a top-down level and then amend the forecast for all the products in that mix. That allows you to very quickly react to a market change and also allows that change in the business to be affected to the line item ordering quite quickly and easily for the user. We've also got over here on this screen a couple of exception type reports. So we're highlighting to the user, hey, these forecasts look wrong. Maybe you want to spend a bit of time exploring this, understanding what's right and wrong around these products, and getting into a bit more detail to fix the forecast. One of the things you've got to remember is that the fact that the tool's really simple and easy to use doesn't change what the business needs to do in terms of gathering input and doing some sort of formal forecasting process or methodology in their business. The tool just supports those sort of things. Those things need to still take place. Right, so we've looked at forecasting. One of the other things that's really quite unique and we feel adds a lot of value to our customers is our classification matrix. And what we've done here is, rather than going and getting really complicated with A, B, C, D, E, F categories and Paretos and things like that and trying to slice and dice in 20 different directions, we've gone quite simple. Remember what I said earlier, the simplicity is the key to this. And we've got an ABC ranking. The ABC says, let's have a look at things in descending order of the value of the future requirement on the product and categorize that into ABC. And we take the top 80% of that value and we put that into the A bucket. The next 16% we use as Bs and the rest goes into Cs. So you have less A's than B's, less B's than C's, but the value of the turnover or the future requirement really sits and is focused around the A items. And you'll notice I spoke about the value. And I spoke about 80%. Those are obviously all parameters that can be flexed. We can use selling price, we can use margins, you can use 80%, you can use 95% if needed. So you can flex certain of those parameters, of course. But the principle of the 80-20 really does drive home, and we find for most of our customers that tends to actually work okay. But it's not just good enough thinking about it from a value perspective. You also notice that every now and again there's that cheap item that if you haven't got stock stops an entire order. And we can't afford for that to happen. So what we've done is we've taken a high, medium, and low ranking in terms of simple unit velocity of average demand. So we're looking at an item and we're saying it's a high volume product in terms of velocity of movement, but also has a high value of demand. And we put that into what we call our A high categories, the green blocks on the top right-hand side. These are products that really become bread and butter. You know, it's worth spending time on those products, having meetings about them, really exploring whatever you can, sitting down with suppliers, really going to town and trying to figure out what is the best decisions around those products. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got this red block over here, that's the C lows. These are the bottom 4% from a value point of view. They're also the bottom 4% in terms of unit movement typically. So not only do they not sell, but when they don't sell, they don't make money for you either. So these are the products that you almost want to rationalize. You want to look at, hey, there's a risk of obsolescence here. Do I really need to buy this? But they're also the products that you want to say, once I've made that decision, let's not have this debate every week and make a decision to get some stock in because it's relatively inexpensive. You might get a little bit more. But you're going to be very careful about those sort of decisions. So the matrix over here groups similar items together. And because they're putting similar items together, your decision making around the products becomes a lot easier. You look at the green blocks, well, you know what? It's worth spending time on them. The red block, let's just make a quick call on this and move on. Let's not make the wrong decision, though. You know, and the brown blocks on the extremities over here could be items that have high value, but don't move that often. You know, they're strategic. They're the ones that you probably want to ask a few questions. Who's going to buy this? When are they going to buy it? Let's make a proper decision on it. Or it's a high volume item that doesn't cost a lot. You know, let's get, you want 30? Well, let's get 60 and call it a day. Because it's worth getting a little bit extra just not to have that discussion, and also it's not a huge investment and it improves fall rate. So these are the sort of things that start coming out, and this classification really focuses energy. We've taken this through to even looking at those excess items, surplus orders, potential stockouts. We were looking at the dashboard. You know, if I'm looking at a stockout, I'm going to concentrate first on the green blocks. If I'm looking at excess, I'm going to concentrate first on the red blocks. And the color coding as well as the position in the matrix gives us a very quick indication of where to put our focus. So that's given you a couple of key indicators. I've explored a little bit of the software. I've given you a couple of ideas here. As I said in the beginning, we could spend a lot of time here. What I want to explore over here is really the interface. And what we've got is on your client environment, whether it be on-premise or a cloud-based environment, we run a series of extracts. Those extracts using SQL scripts extract the data out of the system and create up to 11 or 12 CSV files that are then synchronized across to the NETSTOCK servers. When they land on the servers, they are imported and processed, and then the client gets to log in and use this via browser interface, which is the route that I was showing you a moment ago inside the software. Now, being a CSV export, it does allow us certain opportunities to amend and also to point the scripts to point to certain areas that might be different in each customer's scenario. And obviously, that does allow some opportunities for certain flexibility. So I'd encourage you to keep that as simple as possible, because by keeping it simple, it's supportable, and it's also something that then is sustainable in the longer term. Right, so we've got that as the interface. That's how it all hangs together in terms of the picture, in terms of the interface. The other piece I wanted to show you is a little bit about the onboarding process, and really we follow a 5-step process here. And what I need to highlight to you here is it's not a complicated process to get this installed and set up and running, which is really one of the things that we've been working really hard on to make it almost brutally simple in terms of how we get the process installed and how we get the client up and running. We try and do it in a way that obviously allows the client to work with the system quickly and easily and get on board with it. But from just a simple learning perspective, as an example, we make quite extensive use of online materials and tools. And that means that the onus around that is not going to come back to you or to ourselves in terms of retraining and retraining and retraining. There is certain elements that we're going to have to run through in the beginning. Now I've got a bit of detail here about what each of these blocks entail. But just at a very high level, the launch process here is about installing the connectors, getting it up and running, getting a first set of data going. And then the integration piece is about refining that and making it more appropriate to your customer, validating some totals, then doing a first review with the customer, understanding what that means, what are we missing, what have we not taken into account, maybe the lead time stored in a custom field, and we need to just point to that as part of the adjustment to get the system up and running. And that's all in the refinement step 3 process that we're talking about. We then move into the learn phase, and the learn phase is really about the customer understanding the product. And you'll notice I use that as a learn and not training. So what we're trying to do there is we're trying to get the customer to explore on their own and try and use the intuitive nature of the product to make it a little bit easier for them to really learn faster, get familiar with the product, and to engage with the product. The more they're asking us questions, the more we know they're engaging. The more they sit in a classroom at the back of the class falling asleep or playing on Facebook, the less they're learning. So we don't like that sort of route to training, and we try and make the customer engage themselves. There's a lot of online material and videos and that sort of material, but we also do webinars and a couple of those sort of things in terms of helping them to engage and learn how to use the product. And quite quickly through this process, we get to what we call the question and answer session, where they're trying to explore how to do certain things in a slightly different way. We then move across to using the system, and that's the final stage that we're then really engaging with the customer, and they're starting to get benefit out of it and start progressing. Now, all of these steps can really be anything from a 2-week window through to maybe up to an 8-week window. And what determines this timing is the level of engagement from the customer side. And the key thing there is you find a very senior person at a customer engaging in the product, loving the product, and you'll find it's a 2-week process. You find a buyer sitting over there that's been told by his manager to implement this, you're on the 8-week track, because it really just boils down to their engagement and the amount of time that they want to spend on the product and how keen they are to learn. So try and get that senior guy involved in the process, try and make him look at it. And one of the tricks we learned there is whisper in the more senior guy's ear about what the dashboard actually is telling him and get him to ask his buyers what is happening in terms of those products, and you'll see quite a different result in terms of that engagement. So what are we expecting of you guys as the partners here? Really very little. We need to identify some candidates for this, and who are suitable candidates? Somebody with stock. We need to initiate some form of discussions with them and really just help us set up to close the sale. We'll do the demo. We'll explain what the product's about. We'll field all the questions. We're not asking you to learn all of that stuff before you can engage with the customer. We want to be able to be there by your side doing that. And really, we'll then help with the client insights and understanding, and with yourselves at our side to understand maybe some of the nuances of the customer in order to get the right solution in place. And really from your side, the other things that we're looking for is really to help encourage that customer to engage with us and to update and use the product. Ask some questions, ask them how it's going, ask them whether they're having some success with it, ask them if there's any frustration, and share that with us so we can help make sure that the customer is correctly engaged and getting the result from it. And then finally, help us celebrate the success and tell your other customers about it. So that's really what we're expecting from you in terms of this. The opportunities as far as they go for you, let's spend a little bit of time on that. So the key thing we want to have a look at here is the opportunities when you're selling the product. The primary one over here is giving you that competitive edge. When you're competing against another ERP system, or if you're competing against other products out there in the marketplace and you put up a NETSTOCK next to your product, that intuitive nature, the usability of the product really just helps you win that deal. We found a couple of customers that have actually selected the ERP because they get this as part of the deal. So have a look at trying to roll that in, and I think that can give you quite a competitive edge. The second part of this is it puts you in the role of a trusted advisor, and we all know that you generate more sales through being that trusted partner for your customer. And if you're the trusted advisor in bringing in products like this and it's adding value to their business, well, you're the person they're going to talk to if they want something else in their business. It also gives you a reason to engage with your existing customers. You know, when they've got all the products that you've got in the market and you've delivered all the things that they've wanted, well, maybe they've gone quiet on you. Get in contact with them again, use this as a reason to open that discussion. It's a solution to some of your customers' issues out there, and you might find some of your existing customers or even new customers are complaining about the difficulty in doing this. And obviously, there is the commission side of this in terms of trying to generate some revenue. So those are the key opportunities around this, and really to get going with this whole thing, what I'd suggest we do is really connect with Russ. He's our representation in the American market, the North American market, and it's really Russ at netstock.co. Careful of the .co, it's not .com. No spelling mistake or typing mistakes on the screen. And let's line up a web demo or a discussion and explore a pilot with a customer. You know, if you've got other people in your team that want to know about this, your solution guys, your sales guys, let's put that together, let's talk to them, and let's understand what this can do for your customer base and really just take it from there. So I hope that's been informative, and I hope to hear from you guys soon and share some fantastic successes with your customers.